Welcome everyone to another episode of Everything Imaginable. I'm your host, Gary Cacciolillo. And before we get started, I want to thank everybody for listening and also thank the contributors to my show, who are executive producers Candace Sanderson, author of The Reluctant Messenger, and Joseph Sincavi, author of How to Kiss the Universe, and Ms. Aida, witch, psychic, author, and tarot reader, and a bunch of other things. You can find her at www.missaida.com, missaida.com. And that's the co-host, Jared Murphy, author of It's Not Aliens, It's Worse, It's Us. And this episode is being sponsored by Ginger Glasser. And you can find Ginger at tarotbyginger.com. And she is a psychic, a medium, healer, tarot reader. And I highly recommend her if you're looking to find out information surrounding a specific situation or major decision. She's definitely awesome to go to. And you can find her at tarotbyginger.com. And now, without further ado, our guest for today is Joshua Lewis. And he is the author of Finding Hope in the Afterlife, and he also has his own spirit communication app. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Gary.
So
Happy to be here.
So what got you into the paranormal world?
Well, I was interested in it over a decade ago, and my partner and I, Nikki, just started really watching different programs on TV and seeing different things on YouTube, spirit boxes and EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, just recorders, holding voice recorders and things like that. And so then eventually we just decided to get some of our own little basic entry level things and take it out to the field, cemeteries and abandoned buildings and things of that nature. And we started capturing voices that were coherent. They were clear, answering us, telling us names, saying, "Help me," the light, things like that. Sometimes we'd get get out or something like that. But I knew then that there was something very real out there. Shortly after that, we started, feeling intuitive feelings, different things that were coming to us when we were out there. We were talking and to spirit through the boxes and the gear, and then we would start to feel things, and we would say it, and then all of a sudden we get validation through the box, and so that was really cool. My cat's trying to jump up. Sorry. And that continued on until the ability just continued to grow, and then with that came better responses, better evidence, better communication. So, 10 years later, here I am. I have a channel, like you said, the book is out. The app is available, the free version on iOS and Android. Hope Spirit Box is free for anyone that want to try it. And then I have the pro version that is coming out. And by the time I think this will air, it should be out, available, which is the pro version. And that's an online program for desktop and laptop. So it's really advanced. It's evolved from when I first started.
So I've used different paranormal investigation equipment, EVP stuff, ghost boxes. I've made my own ghost boxes out of transistor radios that was scan the frequencies and things like that. How do you incorporate that into a phone app? Because a phone doesn't necessarily have all the abilities to scan frequencies and do things like that. So what is it that the phone is able to detect other than magnetic fields?
It's a great question. I can only speak to my research for the last 10 years. I mean, I've watched other people. I've picked up on a lot of other people's things. You learn what to do, what not to do, other kinds of things like that. But all I've got is my own research. And if I do something and I experiment, then I find what the reality is or what I'm getting, the results are. And so I have to go off that. I used to think that the radio boxes, which of course are the first real spirit boxes, Frank Sumption's the one that really created the first spirit box. And other than what Edison and Tesla and those other guys were working on back, almost 100 years ago. But so it's scanning radio, like you said. And so it's at a fast rate, skipping different stations. I used to personally think that the spirit was waiting or plucking, timing a word in the broadcast and using it. Okay.
Mhm.
That can happen where a word can come through, but that could be a false positive because you've got forward speech coming from these radios, right? They're scanning radio stations. Now, if it's skipping at a fast rate, then you really shouldn't get too many words. It should just be like you're going to get very fast. So I realized that I don't, well, I had a theory that it wasn't them plucking words from the broadcast, that they were taking the bits of sound and
Mhm.
forming their own responses. Okay. So if that's the case, then you don't need radio. You just need sound. You need to feed them sound. And if that's the case, then I don't want any forward speaking words in my app or when I'm doing a session. Okay. So what I want human sound, but no words. I want, reversed, chopped up, slowed, so just just really all gibberish. That's what I want. Okay, and that was the theory. And so when I tested the theory, they used it. They turned complete gibberish into words, responses, simple 1, 2, 3 word responses. Yes, I'm here, or I'm okay, I love you. And I was able to get these very clear responses using errant gibberish sounds. So when you're asking me, well, what is the app offering? The app has different
Mhm.
sound banks of all human sound. Now, I got an old lady, old man, middle-aged woman, young. Okay. And I got all these different sounds. Now, does that mean that if I pick a middle-aged man, that's who has to use it? No, of course not. We know that a woman's spirit could still come through using that sound. But what I find is, because I am an intuitive, I am a trained intuitive. I've been doing it, like I said, for about a decade now. And um, I connect intuitively, and I try to connect to the person I'm trying to connect with, unless I'm doing a random session and just asking who's there. Radio boxes are great for that because you're going to get a mix of all kinds of sounds. But if I'm trying to focus on one person, I'll put on a sound bank that is similar to what I believe that person sounds like, and I invite them to
Mhm.
use it. And so that's what we get. So that's what I think. I think that the spirit is taking gibberish and turning it into
Mhm.
speech.
I've heard, similar theories or similar devices that use something like that, where it'll, instead of using human sounds, it'll use, like, different forms of white noise,
That
and
too. That too.
that will
Sure.
create some type of communication because it can manipulate the frequencies that are inside that white noise,
Sure.
um, whatever you would call it, radius, spectrum.
On that spectrum, the sound spectrum, I would say
Mhm.
that when you're giving someone human sound, though, I think that and it's just, again, my personal opinion and my experience is that you're giving them as close to what they would want to use. You know what I'm saying? You can get EVP or just responses through a white noise generator or something like that. Maybe sometimes people have tested doing sound banks with like frenetic sounds, like just the oh, that kind of, but
Mhm.
that doesn't work as well. You kind of need, what I found is that you need human speech, but you don't want any forward speaking words, because a lot of these apps and a lot of them I don't think are very good. And I'm not saying it because I'm by, it's my app. I understand, but um, I just don't want to run a session and risk hearing something that's coming from their sound bank or either from the radio that is not spirit.
Mhm.
I don't want that at all. That's so,
Mhm. So it doesn't use any type of, like, EMF or magnetic fields.
no, no. It again, it's raw sound, and then what we do is we add, a reverb. We add an echo to it, and
Mhm.
what that does is it takes a short sound wave and elongates it. And so when there's an elongated sound wave, now they have the ability. They have more of a canvas to work on. Let's just say. and so they can manipulate the sound easier with that reverberation. And so that's where they can imprint their response on.
Mhm. So, what was it that inspired you to make this app? Was it that you were finding existing technology um, not as effective, and you thought you needed to fill that gap?
Well, I mean, the thing is that I've been, doing this for, like I said, that long, and I've been working with. I love radio boxes. I love working with my DR60 and other, different recorders that I have. I love EVP. I love doing all kinds of different ITC, water ITC, and all different types of spirit photographies. There's a lot of cool things that I've tried doing, but I've noticed that my communication was getting, better myself, and then my responses were, getting better through the boxes, and I just kept wanting to go. I wanted, more clarity. I wanted to have a more direct conversation, and get more reliable, responses. So I started incorporating everything that I've ever used and learned, and started putting it into the app. And that's, now we've got a pro version that's an online version. And that was really the first thing that came out. I mean, I came out with that. I worked on that with my developer friend for 6, 7 months, almost every night. And then we said, okay, well, we're going to release the device version, but we want to give that out for free. We want people
Mhm.
to want everyone to have a chance to use this thing for free. And then down the road, we'll bring that online version back, which is kind of like the Rolls Royce of this program. And we'll bring that back, and we'll charge, a modest, $5 or something a month or something, because it's an online program. You can't buy it.
Right.
That's going to be the issue. So, but it's a full suite. It's going to have, like, it has recording features. You can caption, you can export clips, you can slow down, you can review, you can use a couple of different effects. So it's really it's a really neat, program.
It's
I think it's
cool.
going to change the game. I think, for me, I'm using it now in every video, every session I've been doing. I've been posting
Mhm.
about it. And like I said, when this airs, I mean, it should be, out and available. Hope paranormal.com, is where people can find it.
Well, it is cool that somebody can spend $5 a month and have a piece of equipment rather than
Yes,
having to go and spend $500 on a
correct.
piece of equipment.
And they can try it out for 1 month. I mean, who
Mhm.
doesn't try out one streaming service for $5 a month just to get a show that they wanted to see, and then they, cancel or whatever? So I mean, the thing is that you have an opportunity, and you can use it whenever you want. You don't
Yeah.
have to stay signed up. You can sign back up when you want to use it again. Maybe you only
Mhm.
ghost hunt a few times during the year, or you want to communicate. But this is a physical box is no longer needed, and that's what I'm proving with this, is that you don't have to have crystals and everything else. Even though I love crystals, I love having my cool little things
Mhm.
around, but you don't need that. That's not what this is. Science. This is scientific. It will work. It is, it's a research tool. It should be used responsibly. It's not like for entertainment purposes. This is the real thing. And someone should do a grounding meditation briefly before they do these types of sessions, and take it seriously. I think that's really how it needs to be treated. And but yeah, and everyone now, for, like you said, for $5 can have it in their home, or have a piece of amazing equipment, to use, and all they need is a laptop or a desktop computer.
So, what's the point of spirit communication to begin with? Like, why do we do this? Why do we use seances and ghost boxes and mediums and um,
Well, I mean,
all these different things that we're using to communicate with people that have deceased, that they're dead, they're not here anymore. so
non-corporeal,
so
yeah.
so part of it, figure like, well, maybe the person's dead, so that's it, they're done, they don't have anything left to offer the living. Why do we reach out to them, and what is it you think that we're trying to get from them other than
Well,
reassurance of life after death?
I mean, it's another great question you're asking, Gary. And I think that the answer started with that people were first in grief, and, they're missing their loved ones. So they want to know that life carries on, and if their loved ones are okay. So that's what motivated people to really want to go after, spirit communication.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but then at some point, you may discover that there's something there, and it's not just about maybe contacting your loved one anymore. Now it's about really finding out some deeper truths and understanding them. And I didn't lose anyone that close to me that got me into this. I have since in the last 10 years, and I've reached out to them, and I've had some really amazing experiences. But it was really just me wanting to know the reality as much as that I could understand.
Mhm.
And then when you hear a lot of help me's, I heard a lot of helps, and I'm going, well, I don't know what I can do. I'm not God. I don't know what abilities I have, but I know this. I have compassion. I have faith in a higher power. And I also can pray. I can do those things, right? Like that's the simple things that I can do. So I started doing that when I would go to these places and I'd hear those responses to help me. And then I'd turn my gear back on afterwards, and you'd hear a lot of thank yous. I feel it. I feel the light. I feel better. You heard things like that, a lot of thank yous. And that meant a lot to me. That felt good. That felt like I was maybe doing some kind of, otherworldly service. I don't know, other dimensional service. I don't know. So now I'm getting information that's coming through the boxes that are not just, I miss you, I love you, for these people that I'm doing these sessions for, but they're saying, the light is stored in heaven and we help you with the light. We're helping you. We're near you. The loved ones, they're saying this, God's real. God is there. I'm near him. I see him. Things like that. So I think it's really helping people. I mean, people have two responses, two reactions when they see my channel, my work. They say, um, holy cow, this is amazing. This is unbelievable. This is groundbreaking kind of type stuff. Or holy cow, is this guy a charlatan, and is this some of the fakest crap I've ever seen in my life? Because it's that hard to believe, and I don't blame them for feeling that way. Like if I rolled up on my channel, I would say, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, what is this? So it's a tough deal. It's a tough gig to show people. But I think when you cut through the skepticism and all the other stuff, I try to be as transparent and answer any question, any part of my process I'm open to talk about, show you. I don't care. Give you the free app, use it yourself. All that. But after all that is cut through, there's a lot of people that say, I really appreciate these videos. They really help me a lot, and I didn't have as much faith, but watching you for a few years now has really helped. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I feel like my higher power is using me in some small way to help people. I think that's a really cool thing. So that's the point, I think, for spirit communication.
Yeah, that is cool. Um, do you think that spirits get stuck here and can't go into the light, or they can't go on to the next realm for some reason? They get stuck in this 3D dimension as a disincarnated spirit. And when that happens, like, why do you think it happens? Is it because they don't want to let go of a loved one or a
Yeah.
family, or is it
Yeah.
because they've just done something horrendously wrong and they just want to torture people for eternity?
I mean, I think you kind of just nailed a few of the reasons. I think you've got people that, I mean, we have free will in this life. And because we have free will, there's consequences for our actions, right? We can do good things unto people, and, that energy will eventually come back to us, whether it's in this life or the next, karma in a sense, and so hence, if we're doing bad things unto other people and hurting people, we may not suffer in this life, right? We may get away with it or something, but we're not going to escape the karma system. And that's what I believe. And so, yes, but we still have free will on the other side as well. And so, people that do bad, kill people, whatever, really evil acts or something, I believe, again, just based on my research, that I believe, and based on the findings that I've captured, that they can go to the other side and evade judgment, if you will, for a while. They can hide in the darkness. They don't have to. They're not going to evade eternity, because eternity's patient, right? Like, it's going to get you at some point. Like, you can't escape it. But they're going to have to face their own karma, they're going to have to feel all the stuff that they did. They're going to have to come to terms and deal with all of that. I don't know necessarily if there is a pit with fire and a guy with hooves and a pitchfork. I do believe there is a guy, an evil one. I do believe that. I just don't know if it's like a hell and all the souls are burning in it. So as far as for bad people, I think that they will have to face their own judgment and deal with that, and that's going to be like a form of hell in a way. But people that don't want to leave a loved one, like you said, people that want to stay behind, they don't want to go into the light because they're afraid of judgment or what's up there. They may have not done anything bad, but maybe they just feel like they have a lot of anger can keep you held back, and you don't have to go into it, or it may not appear the light right away. Um, so, I mean, I've heard both sides of the story. I've heard both ends of it. People saying, I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying in my home, I'm staying around my family, that kind of thing. And they're not living a bad afterlife, but they're also not experiencing all that the afterlife is what I'm feeling. And then the ones that do go into the light, they say they went right away, or they found the light, that they found some God, that they mentioned God. Sometimes Jesus's name is mentioned. They say that it's beautiful, it's incredible, it's amazing. So you get a lot of those, too. So
Do you think that when people die, everybody experience like you kind of said already answer like not everybody experiences the same thing when they pass away? Um, as far as like religions go, do you think
mhm.
that there's one religion that is correct and all the others are wrong?
No, I think all the religions are right to the core. And I think at the core of all religions, love is really the core of it when you strip away all of man's, what they have imposed onto it and tried to manipulate it, the system. But if you look at, like, if someone was raised following Krishna, if someone was raised following Buddha, if someone was raised following Jesus, Allah, um, it doesn't matter. It's all leading back to the same source. The unmanifested divine mother, father, mother, whatever you want to call it. And that energy is everywhere and everything. So it's kind of a tough, I know it's kind of hokey and kind of hippy dippy, but the fact is that is the reality. I mean, the whole point of this life is to self-realize that we are part of the divine, and to show compassion and help others along the process, but to realize that, to seek our higher power, and self-realize. And some people take multiple lives to do that. Some people take a shorter amount of time to do that. And but so anyone that followed any of those other Mahavatars, if you want to call them, or those enlightened ones, will get to the same source. Because even an atheist that doesn't believe in, let's say, a Jesus Christ, or a guy in the sky with a beard, and whatever the heck, like, doesn't believe in God, period. I mean, whatever. Okay, if they live with love in their heart, and they are doing good unto others, they're compassionate, they care, they're trying to improve themselves, they will have a better chance at getting into heaven, if you will, or meeting the higher power, than the guy that attends church on Sunday and acts like he's very devout, but really doesn't live with any of that love. He's more judgmental. He's more, he gossips. He's, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I think that's the message that even Jesus Christ would say. But a lot of people don't want to, as a Gnostic, I think that's what he would say, because it's all compassion, all love, doesn't care. It's not about religion. It's not about that. Even in the Gospels, of the lost Gospels of St. Thomas, that are found near where the Dead Sea Scrolls were, and he talks about Jesus's words that, what does he say? He says, "Break a twig, I am there; lift a stone, I am underneath it." And he was saying, I'm everywhere. The Father is everywhere. The God, the source is everywhere. You don't have to be in church to worship.
Mhm. I agree with that. I believe that I kind of go by the idea that we're living inside God's dream.
Absolutely, absolutely,
He's. I think
absolutely,
somehow something in the universe became conscious, and
absolutely.
then it said, "You know what? Why am I conscious?" And the only way I can figure out why it's conscious is to run through every probability,
Sure,
and we
absolutely.
are one of those
We're part of that
probabilities.
simulation. We're part of that
Yes.
we're part of that computers run simulations to try to figure out the outcomes, and we're part of that. And the mind works like a complex computer, and we're probably in the mind of God. I mean, we are everything he's everything everywhere. But yeah, I mean, you can even go one step further and say that when that unmanifested consciousness became aware, or however that source became aware, it sent out little points of consciousness, which is what we are,
Mhm.
and it gave us free will to go experience itself, the universe, the multiverse, whatever you want to call it, right? And then that source is now hoping, wanting probably us to return to it, but we have to kind of make that ascension on our own. It can't say, if I'm a loving higher power, I can't just make you all love me, make me love myself or whatever. You got to come back to me. Then if I gave you truly free will, then you'll have to make your way back to me on your own.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what we're in the process of.
Isn't that a weird idea? Like there's a God, a consciousness that is uncertain about itself, just like we are uncertain about ourselves, waiting for us to return to say, okay, you're good.
Right. How freaking awesome is that?
It's weird. It's crazy.
I think that's amazing, man. I mean, how weird is it that we're on a rock freaking hurling at 10,000 miles per hour or whatever the hell it is? I mean, it's insane, man. And here
Mhm.
we are having a podcast interview on a hurling rock, man.
It's wild. It is wild that we actually exist.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think when you're doing spirit communication, do you think that you're only communicating with human spirits, or do you think
No.
that you also communicate with demonic spirits,
Eh,
angelic spirits, elementals,
I, I
plants?
I'll get some negative stuff sometimes. It's really rare. It's like 10% or less of the time I'll get something negative. And when I do, it's more like a troll on Facebook, some guy that just won't leave you alone in the comments.
Hmm.
That's really kind of what it's like for me when I'm getting someone negative. I don't believe I'm getting, the majority of the messages are all positive and helpful, and, really positive, beautiful things. So I think it's a really good thing, and that's why I've always felt that intuitively. There have been some times that I've captured responses about aliens, about ETs. I've captured quite a few of spirit talking about them, saying we've seen aliens, or there were spirits on spaceships.
Hmm.
So there's some really interesting things that are being talked about on the box. And I'll tell you this, that it's very interesting that I find when you watch my sessions, I use a night vision camera a lot of times while I'm doing it. And of course, a lot of people try to film orbs with their phone. They turn on the flash and they rustle up the pillows and the blankets. And then all of a sudden you see this wave of
Hmm.
dust coming flying by, and they go, look at all the orbs, and I get that. So, you got water vapor, you got bugs, you got dust, you got all those factors that when you're, so it is kind of rare. But when you're watching a ball of light enter a picture in slow motion and then go up and shoot out of my head, or fly in and enter my box or something,
Hmm.
that's not dust or a bug, and so these light anomalies, if you will, look very familiar to almost how some of the UAPs travel, some of the UFOs travel and stuff. It's like these balls of light. And so there's just something interesting about that. I know that there's what I believe to be the souls that are entering when I'm doing my sessions. They're
Hmm.
entering the box, they're connecting with me, which I'm letting them in that moment do. So I've heard some real confirmation about the existence of ETs.
There's absolute connection between extraterrestrials and consciousness. Like I don't know if
Absolutely.
you're familiar with like the CE5,
I
like
am.
Stephen Greer,
In
and
fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because when you listen to CE5 or that type of meditation and what to do, that's exactly for the most part, which I didn't even know. I was doing this certain type of grounding meditation that I do, and a visualization meditation. And I do that, and I have all my clients do that before a reading or a session. And then I heard part of the CE5 meditation, and I went, holy cow. That's like what I'm doing to connect with the spirit. So if I'm doing that to connect with the spirit, of course you can do that to connect with ET, alien life form, whatever, intelligent life on the,
Hmm.
other dimensional, whatever. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a guest on regularly, Preston Dennett, and he has been a part of the CE5 with Stephen Greer, and
Yeah.
he had
He's
told me
got some of the best footage.
and he told me a technique to do. I had never seen a UFO before, but I tried it and I saw a UFO. So
It's
I'm 100% sure there's a connection between our consciousness and ETs, because I think maybe ETs somehow have figured out a way to traverse space and time
oh, they
using
have.
consciousness rather than using a physical ship.
I just saw this TikTok and it showed like they were like from New York or like to go around the world, what it would look like if you traveled at the speed of light or something like that, and it was like 4 frames. It was like like you were just and they were like, we're gonna slow down the 4 frames, and it showed like over the ocean in Australia at one point, da, 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 da. But it was like thought. It was like thought. It was like thinking of a place and then you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what they're doing, like you just said. I think that that's what I have to do to connect to spirit. I have to visualize them. I have to think of them. They're there, and then you see them coming in. It's really amazing. It's like a call. It's like a soul call. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the soul. I think when you're doing that exercise, like the CE5 exercise or whatever, and then you look up, and all of a sudden you've got some kind of light like orb, but really high up in the sky, and it's moving, it's stopping, it's doing something that it's independent. There's something of kind of intelligence there, and it's not a drone. You just made a soul call, a mental phone call, man.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
It is.
And one thing like this faster than the speed of light is the speed of thought. And scientists have even proven that through,
See, and that's
using
even yeah.
tests in like quantum physics.
That's a great point. You know what I'm saying? I just think of it as like light. The speed of light is like the speed of
Hmm.
thought. But you are correct. I mean, I've heard that before. Is that it's faster? How did they clock that? Tell me the results, Karen. No, I hear you. I hear you,
it
man.
has to do though with like you have they split a particle and they separate it, one side of the world and the other. And
Oh,
since
like
there
string
and
theory.
since when you do that though, if you do something to one particle, the other one will react.
That's
So,
why.
they were
Okay, and
able
that's
to
what
time that like there was no it was impossible for them to time it because the reaction was instantaneous.
isn't that what
So
they just did
so
the Nobel
either
Prize?
either speed of thought is faster than the speed of light, or there's no such thing as time. Period.
Separation. It's that we're all like in that. It's not local. The universe isn't local, or that
Hmm.
it, right. And that's what the Nobel Peace Prize, I think, was just. I think they were just, or that was about. But that's that string theory. I mean, the
Yeah.
splitting of, yeah, and the second that one rotates, the other one simultaneously rotates. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I find that like fascinating
Oh,
how
it's
that's
unbelievable.
possible.
It's
and, and
amazing.
and I also find it fascinating that yogis, like thousands of years ago, knew how to use their consciousness to do things. One of my favorite books of all time.
He's
Love
my
it.
guru. I'm a
That is
Kriya band,
that is
man.
the book.
I practice Kriya
Yep.
yoga. Yeah, I was initiate because
Yogananda. Yep.
he is the lineage, man. It's on the wall. I became a member of the Self Realization Fellowship, and Steve Jobs. I mean, he made sure there was 500
Yes.
copies at his funeral. George Harrison made sure to give these out as and I would. I mean, I wrote a book, and I love my book. I'm just very grateful for my book. But I would say that even that, I would say, please read my book. I would say,
Mhm.
read this book first. This is the
I
more important
I
book,
agree.
clearly. And you know what I mean? And it's no ego at all. It's just about this is because what happened is that I found him, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and so around 18, I found him. But I already had been doing this research a while. And when I started reading it, I found that what he was talking about was validating what I
Hmm.
was finding in my research. So that's how I knew that he was right. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to take the guy's word for it. I mean, I was like, and he says that. He says, don't just take our word for it. put it to the test.
Yeah.
Really try you shouldn't just read the books. You got to live experiential. You have to have experiences, So yeah, anyone that doesn't have this book should have this
Yeah,
book
which is autobiography of a
of a
yogi.
yogi. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because he came to America, and one of the things that he was working with was and it never got finished, which was that immortality machine.
Was he working on that? I mean,
Yes,
is that
he was a part of that.
I don't I watched Awake, and of course I've read most of his books. I didn't know about any of that.
Yeah, yeah. If you watch, I forget the guy who created it. I'd have to look it up
Oh, I
and
would
tell you.
love for you to
But
send it to
but
me. I
but
mean,
if
I'll
you
Google
read
it.
about it, you'll see that Yogananda and some of his followers were involved with trying to build that immortality machine, which now is like mostly used for sounds and acoustics. But sound and acoustics has everything to do with what we're talking
Gary,
about.
that's a really that's really interesting. You think you know something, and then all of a sudden someone drops something else on you. That's pretty interesting because you know what? I'm gonna have to really do some research on that because when I found him and I was reading this and I was really just oh deep into the book and the experience and I was feeling him every day around me. It was just
Mhm.
really powerful. Now he talks about in his book that when students were worried about when the guru dies, what are we going to do? And he says, don't worry. He goes, the guru will still be there on this
Yeah.
other side to be able to help you just as much, if not more, than when they were alive. And all that sounds great, right? But how
Mhm.
are we to really test that theory? How do we know? I mean, in your own personal experience, but when I'm doing my sessions and I'm reading the book, and then later that night or those nights I had sessions with people, clients and things, they were talking, spirits were saying, Yogananda's here, Paramahansa. And then the voice came through. And so it sounds like multiple times that he came through, even
Wow.
using his own voice. And I have videos on it on my channel. And of course, they're like the least watched because people like more of the well known people that
Uh-huh.
I ask for and stuff. But that's the most important session to me because
Hmm.
that's the real proof. That's what we want to know. That are we getting that help from the other side? Were those words true? And he proved it. So now you're telling me that he was working on some kind of machine working with sound. And I was wondering, I said, I wonder why Yogananda would want to come through. Why would he want to, I mean, of course, I'm grateful for him and I would always thank him every day that he came through. But now maybe that makes a little bit more sense.
Let me see if I can look this up really quick.
I can't believe that, man.
Immortality machine.
You just opened up another
In,
door
I
here.
know it's in California.
Yeah.
The guy who did my intro and outro,
Yeah.
he went there and spent the night inside this thing.
A night
And they're
inside of the ashram or the self realization fellowship or
the
what?
no the immortality machine.
Are you serious? So
Yeah,
it's an actual thing that's there?
yes. Hmm.
And are you telling me that this thing resonates at a certain hertz, like a certain frequency?
Yes, it's all based on sound. That's why he went there. He did some recording inside of it.
I wonder what the frequency is.
Uh,
Oh my gosh, if you tell me something
here
anything close to what I'm thinking.
Here is dedicated research extension. Oh yeah, the guy's name was George Van Tassel.
Okay, hold on. I gotta write this down real quick. Hold on. George what's the last name?
Tassel.
T A S. Yeah.
Tassel.
TASS.
Tassel.
Okay,
George
good.
Van Tassel.
Okay, good. And it's the immortality machine?
Yeah, yeah, that's what they call it.
Mortality machine. Wow, this is interesting. How have I not heard about this? This is crazy. And the
It's just
and
one of those weird things
well,
that,
no, because this is the thing though. In my book, I talk about so I was given a design intuitively back in 2014. Here's the design.
well, let me show you the picture of the immortality machine. Look.
No, Gary, listen to me.
Yeah, it's the same. How crazy is that? How
What are you
crazy?
doing, buddy? What are you doing, man?
Trying to build
What?
something.
Oh my gosh. What the heck is that? That's
Uh,
exactly like the life piece. How many windows on each side is that? How many windows around that building, I wonder?
uh,
I got 14 of these holes and they
One,
all mean
two, three,
something.
4, 5 on the top. So I'm gonna have to say probably 10 or 12 on the top.
Yeah, I got 14.
I don't know.
Oh
But
my gosh.
I'm sure if I Google it and do more research, we could find out. And then like the
Holy,
center part actually spins. This part was
oh
supposed to
my
spin
gosh.
here.
You're blowing my mind. When I got this design and I carved it out of wood myself because I got the design intuitively, right?
Mhm.
I felt like this thing was supposed to spin at one point,
Yeah, yeah,
but I
that's what
didn't know
this
what.
the center axis spins.
Okay, I
But no,
captured a picture. Check this out. Oh, you're not gonna. I don't know if I'll be able to show you this, man. I captured a picture of a cloud. I looked up and I captured a picture of a cloud,
hmm
and in the cloud, you're not gonna be able to see it, but down here is a design, and it looks like the circle with a circle in the middle.
I
You're
see
not
it.
gonna. You see it?
Yes, I see it.
And it looks like the life piece. I call it the life piece.
hmm
And it looks like the design. And it's just
Yeah.
this crazy thing. But so the whole thing about this is this. Oh my God, this is crazy. Gary, hold on. I didn't know I was going to have this kind of interview tonight. Hold on. Check this out. Okay. So there's a lot of significance to the 14 points. Okay. There's a 14-point star that marks the spot where Jesus supposedly born. And it goes on.
hmm
There's a number of different things, but it's a star-like design. But one day so I belong to this group in Facebook called Cymatics, and they study
Yeah, and that's one of the things too that I think is connected with this is the semantics
oh
of it,
my God,
because that's why
check
it
this
works
out.
with sounds.
So
Yeah.
now this is cymatics, and this is a
hmm
frozen sound wave. And so what it is, this is the design. But what this guy did was freeze the design into
hmm
ice. But
That's
look at
cool.
what the hertz that made that 111.
Uh,
111 is known as the holy frequency. So if you go one step further, so it's making this design. It
hmm
made that design, right? Okay. And it's the holy frequency. So then I go a little further and I look up what about the holy frequency. And check this out. There are several ancient megalithic sites all over the world that resonate at frequencies between 95 hertz and 120 hertz. The Maltese Hypogeum, an ancient temple carved from rock, some 11 meters underground, dates back to 3500 BC. This temple was not only built to serve as a sacred place for spiritual practice, but also to resonate at exactly 111 hertz. But why? When an extensive study was done on ancient architectural acoustic resonant patterns and brain activity, the frequencies 110 between 110 and 112 had a unique effect on the brain. The brain's activity lowered and moved from the prefrontal cortex, deactivating the language center and temporarily switching from left to right side dominance. This is the most highly evolved part of the brain responsible for intuition, creativity, empathic perception, and self conscious awareness. So, dude, my mind is being blown. I have a whole, Gary, thanks for being the deliverer of that message, man.
no
You
problem.
might have been the missing link. You might have been the missing link that I needed, man. You just how crazy is that I just showed you that design? You said, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, let me show you the top of that building." Oh my! No wonder.
Yep.
That's
In
why.
Van Tassel in yoga now, there was definitely a part of that.
Oh, he might have just opened up another door. You guys are clever. Wow. I got my gurus on Jesus and the
Yeah.
gurus, the lineage on the wall. And I look at them often and go, what are you guys thinking? What's happening here?
There's
Holy
definitely
cow.
something to all this because the other thing like with sound that interests me is like monks use chanting
That's
and
right.
in a way when they do it in a temple it works similar to what we use like a binaural beat,
Absolutely.
and even like in like Catholic churches and stuff like that, they're all built to create
To
sound.
to reverberate sound into,
Yes.
yeah, right.
So there's definitely a connection between the sound and our connection to spirituality.
I mean, nothing is a solid. Everything is, I mean, it's energy, it's vibration. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's really what it is. So I mean, the fact is that that is amazing though. I can't just get off that. I have to really like I have to process that for a second. Because what I found was interesting was that this piece, when I was given this design and the story and how that came about, is just mind blowing, right? um I didn't know what this had, and then
So
every
how
year.
did you get the design?
Oh man, do you sure you want to hear the story real quick? I
Yes, I
mean,
want to hear it.
okay, all right,
And
okay.
we're on this topic, so
No, I know, but it's mind blowing and it's really weird. It's crazy. Okay, so when Nikki and I, my partner, were first experimenting with the devices back in those fields, and we didn't know what was going on, I found a medium that I was, friends with. I knew through a mutual friend, and so I didn't know much about mediums. I didn't know what to think. So I had her come out with us to locations that we already had been, and I already had captured names and things. So I kind of had like an understanding, but I didn't tell her anything, and just kind of to test her. And she started to just get names on her own that were things that I got. And so she started to do these channelings, and I'd be running my boxes at the same time. And I'd go back and listen after, and you'd hear some of the same words coming through the spirit box that she was saying, or it would come through right before
Mhm.
the spirit box, and then she'd say it, but she couldn't hear anything coming through the box. So you knew that she was channeling something that was accurate, and it was these messages were very powerful. And then sometimes she said that there was this very high level angel named Jay that would come through, and he always had this amazing mess. I mean, these, you could just feel these amazing messages, right? And after a couple months, she said, listen, I want to tell you something. And I said, okay, and she said, it's going to be weird if I don't know how you're going to react. But she goes, I believe that angel that I'm channeling, I believe that's Jesus. I believe that he's coming through. And I go, like that was like a tough one to kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like that was
Right.
hard for me. And so, but I kind of tested it. And I went home and prayed and to him only. And then I went like a couple of days and I'd see her again, and she'd have a message from him, and he would say, like, I felt your prayer. And he would say something, that only I would
Uh-huh.
know. So there was some really interesting things going on. And one day I wanted to test him kind of in a way. I mean, I wanted to test Jesus, and I was sitting there having coffee with her. And I said, I want to ask Jesus, if that's him, I want to ask him something. I said, I know that he was a craftsman, he was a carpenter when he was alive, but what else did he make? Like, what else did he do? And so she, brought him through, and just like she would do a reading, and she was getting, and he said, or the messages were, I used to make tables and chairs and the yoke for the oxen, and I would do some other things. He said, but I used to also make a little spiritual, like a little keepsake for people. And I said, well, what was this keepsake? I went to Sunday school my whole life. I went to Catholic school. Never heard you making keepsakes for people, And he says, I could show you. Would you like to see the design? And she's channeling this, not in a trance like
Right.
channeling, but she's just, getting it like a medium would.
Yeah.
And she says, well, okay. She goes, can I just draw this design then? Are you going to guide my hand or what? And he says, yes, I will. And she got up and she got a pen and paper. And this was a very like kind, she lived very poor, very like she didn't, very modest, like, but I was always skeptical of everyone and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the deal here? And so she starts drawing this design, and she's just like, I'm not going to draw it out, but she's drawing the design. And then as she's drawing the design, she's saying, she goes, okay, he's describing, he goes, the top dot is source, is God, if you will, he says,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he says the lines that run away from God are fear, and they run us to 14 outer qualities, which is fear, shame, guilt, anger, lust, all these outer qualities. And when we get into those outer qualities, we start running in the ring of fear round and round in those. But there's 14 inner qualities: love, peace, joy, bliss, and they go on. I can't name them all right now, but they all point back to the source. And that's what
Mhm.
brings us back to God. But he says it's not just a flat piece. I did these for people to have as a keepsake. But he says it's a dome shaped. It's like this. It's like that's the design. So we're in the source, but then we descend down through fear, and we can run around the ring of fear and the outer
Yes.
qualities. But then to ascend back, we have to go back to our inner qualities, which are the God qualities, right? And that will bring us back up. And that was this design. And as far as he goes in, this design holds my whole word, he says. Now he said that. It holds my word. But the word is also a vibration. It's not just the scripture or whatever you want to call it. It's not just, which it does. It holds his whole teaching. It's everything you need to know in this one design.
Mhm.
But he says the word, and he says that in a way, and Jesus, the way he spoke, he had other meanings behind also what there was a top meaning, but there was
Mhm.
another meaning behind it, right? It was a Gnostic. And so, I knew there was more that was going to be revealed about this design. And that's when I eventually saw the cymatics. I started scouring and looking. I saw the 14-point star in Bethlehem over in this temple where it supposedly marks the point where, how do we know that's where he was born? But whatever. So there
Mhm.
were some significance to the 14 and the star and this design, but there was no design like this anywhere. I didn't see it. I mean, I protected it just because I didn't know what was going to happen. I give it out. I mean, it's not like I sell it for money, but I mean, it's this amazing design, but it continues to show itself, and so that's how it came about. And unfortunately, this picture I can't really show you that well, but if you could see a digital version, which it is on my, I think, a couple places, it's in my book. You can really see this design in the clouds. And that's what blows my mind is this unnatural design showing up in the clouds. And
Mhm.
and so there's more to it. But I didn't know where else to go with it other than that I walk around and this is made of olive wood pruned from trees that were 2,000 years old. And I walk and you walk around with it, you hold it, you remember what it is, you put your finger on the dot and you hold it, but it's a lot more to it. I even purchased I have the 111 frequency tuner.
Uh-huh.
You can put it on your head, and it's an amazing, to really run that vibration, that resonance through that frequency through your body is really amazing. But that's the story. And of course, I don't, shove that story down people's throats because people are, a little standoffish to the name Jesus sometimes. It's like you can't even, I feel like you can't even almost talk about the real Christ because people have mucked it up so much with him. I have a shirt that has a picture of him, and he says, and on the bottom it's got a quote. It says, "I never said that," because I think that's like, how many times would this guy have to say, "I never said that"? I never
Well,
said,
I,
"Hey,
I I believe like Yogananda mentions that like Jesus and Krishna
he was the one of the
and
biggest proponents of
and
Christ."
they were all the same consciousness.
Correct. And that's why this guy didn't belong to a religion.
Hmm.
He talked about the science of communicating with God. That's what I want to know. Don't talk to me about your beliefs. I want to know about what works. What's your experience with the higher power? What's your experience that works for you? And so that's why this guy was all about the science of communicating. And I think that's why him and I have hit it off so well in a way, because that's how I believe. That's how I
Hmm.
feel. And then I'm also reaching thousands, hundreds of thousands of people at times with some of these videos, and people are seeing some of this work, and I'm going, yeah, it's not like just a heaven or hell, or just like hell, and people that commit, or take their own life, they all go to hell. It doesn't work that
Yeah.
way. It's not like that. God doesn't hate gay people. I'm sorry, I hate to tell you that, but he loves everyone. We're all his creation. So I mean, I think that trying to dispel that stuff and really spread the message of real love, man,
Yeah,
like,
real love. Like we just
which
love
you
each
know
other. I mean,
that,
like should not be that difficult, man. It should just be a big freaking party, is what it should be.
well, what is, I mean, listen, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? It's
No,
simple, but it's not easy.
not easy at all. It's not easy at all because we trip ourselves up because we're so
Ego.
yeah, we're ego driven and we're far away from the source, and Um,
The mind is
and,
far away
and,
from the
and we live in
source.
a dense form of
Dense.
consciousness,
It's
very
so dense
dense.
that it works so hard to get you to forget your divinity on a daily, moment by moment basis. The phones are meant to do it, entertainment, the system, you know, Yogananda talks about what the tree of, like, eating, Adam and Eve and the whole
Yeah,
story
yeah, the
about,
eating the knowledge. Mhm.
and it's the brain is the roots. And if you look at the nervous system and you take away the flesh and all the other stuff, and you've got this brain connected to a spinal cord that has all the different, all the nerves that extend out. And if you flip that nervous system over, it looks like a tree. And so to eat the fruit off the tree is to
Mhm.
live in the five senses, to be only in the taste, the smell, the touch, the sight, the hearing, right? And then, but when we internalize, we go within. That's when we stay within he talks about the spinal cord as the way of the Lord,
Right.
because that's the highway, and you'll see a lot of times in my sessions these spirits going, or these orbs, going right out the top of my head, sometimes right out the white patch in my
Mhm.
hair, and they'll go right out, and that's, I mean, they're entering in. So it's like there's even, this is just a vessel, man, you know what I'm saying? I think I have a party inside my vessel. Sometimes I invite my spirit friends and my soul, and they're all hanging out, and
Mhm.
I don't think it's wild. I really, everyone goes outside to look for the answer, and we've all heard, you got to go within, man, right? But it's true. That's why they say it, because I remember, when right after Anthony Bourdain died, I was reaching out to him, asking for him, and I was getting some of the most powerful communication I've ever received. And, can I say it was Anthony Bourdain for sure? No, of course I can't. No one can. No one can say for sure. But, I feel very confident that, that it was. The answers were very powerful and they lined up. But I was having to really go within and travel the universe, but I have, like, going within to do it. And I really noticed that was the portal, that I was the portal I was the key. Like, it was, the doorway to the universe. So it wasn't outside of me. It was like it was within. That really showed me a lot. But how many times I've forgotten that when having to pay my bills or dealing with my kids or whatever else.
I forget it probably 95% of the time.
Right. But if we can remember it just a little few times, maybe, each day,
Mhm.
there's hope for us.
I agree completely. It's interesting too. I was a huge Anthony Bourdain fan.
Oh my God, I love the
You
guy.
know,
I
plus,
love the guy.
you know, old punk rocker. Gotta love him.
Oh man, he did all the things that I really loved, what he was doing, what he did with people, how he lived his life. I mean, how he just, I don't know, I just, and so when I was communicating, asking for him, there's only a few. I felt some great connections. I've asked for a lot of people, and I mean, it's very rare that I don't get anything there, that nothing comes through. But there's a few that I've asked for that just don't leave my psyche, and he's one of them. I really, it's almost like I connected with him. I felt like I did, like he does with some of the people on his show, and he would really sit down and it was just them, and he would listen to what they had to say and they listened to him. It was a real experience. So I don't know. I think it's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. I'm still blown away by this
I'm
George Van
I'm
Tassel thing.
I am
And
I
you're,
am absolutely. I mean, you can't fake that kind of stuff, because again, like I said, you're telling me something and I'm going, wait a minute, Yogananda and sound and acoustics, and then all of a sudden I hold this design up and you darn hold up that design and it is the same exact thing with sections and holes, but
Mhm.
windows at the bottom, and that thing is supposed to spin. And early on, right after carving this, I told my friend, I said, I don't know why. I said, maybe I can put this on my spirit box. I said, but I think I need to put it where it spins. And I said, I think when it spins, it's going to create some kind of vortex or some kind of like energy field. I don't know how it's going to do it or what, but I said, And he kind of was like, yeah, I'll try it, man, kind of like whatever, but I never really did. But if I just think the connection with him is mind blowing, because sometimes some people are like, oh, what you do with the boxes. It's like, I know you believe in God, but like, this is so against them. And I'm like, it's not, it's not,
No.
it's amazing science. It's a beautiful thing. And if you're doing it with the right intentions and you have love and light in your heart, you're going to get some beautiful things like I've been getting. But you have moments where you're like, oh, I wonder what Yogananda would actually think of it altogether. But I knew he was a scientific man, because everything he tells you about in this book, he cites references, he shows you sources. I mean,
Hmm.
he gives you the real deal. So it's not like
Well,
he's
and Van Tassel is also really interesting in some of the other names that you mentioned, the makers of the spirit box, like Tesla and
yes,
Edison and all
yeah.
those. Van Tassel was like, you know, those were the people that he looked up to.
I've never heard of him. So that's a real eye opener for me. I'm excited to really dive down this rabbit hole once I get off with you, because this, I think you really, I don't know, man. I think you really just opened up a serious door. I don't know when I would have found this out. Who was
Hmm.
going to tell me this? Like
Yeah.
I'm like kind of looking around going, oh man, thank God for Gary coming through
Right.
tonight with this one,
Almost
man.
500 episodes. I've never had this happen.
Really?
Yeah.
That's something else, dude. I've done a lot of interviews already, and I've had some really cool things that people have told me, that new stuff, as I was sharing about it, as like a almost like an ignorant guy sharing that this is what happened, and they go, oh, I know about this or this, and they'll tell me about it. But this is definitely. I was just thinking probably 2 days ago, and I said, I wonder when my next life piece discovery is going to come. So I guess I must have felt it coming or something. I didn't know where it was coming from or what, because when I say that, I found out the Hertz thing. I found out then there was the cloud thing, and then there was like each thing. There's a bunch, and I listed all in my book. Like it's all in my book, but I'm gonna have to like either write a second book or make an amendment to mine, because I think that I don't, we're missing a big section now of this, because with what you just told me, and I don't know what to say. So I can't believe that I said, here, look at this, and you go, oh, here, let me show you. And when you showed it to me, man, I'm going, what? I would have never found that. How did you
Right.
find that? How did you hear about George Van Tassel? Because I didn't hear about this in the Awake
Hmm.
documentary on
So
Yogananda.
the first time I heard of him was an episode of Ancient Aliens.
Okay.
And I think even in that episode, they mentioned the connection with him and Yogananda.
Do they really? Okay. Because I've seen a
And
bunch of Ancient Aliens. I never saw that one.
yeah, it's an older one.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have like I think Netflix, you might be able to find it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have
And
to.
and then after seeing that episode, I got really curious about it and about sound. So I had also interviewed, a friend of mine who has been there, who did my intro and outro. It's
Oh,
all
right. That's what you're
binaural
telling me.
beats.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
so he told me about it, and I've interviewed because the connection between sound and spirituality and sacred geometry and the cult and UFOs and angels, like, all this stuff is connected in my in my
It
mind.
absolutely is.
Is
And
all
anyone
connected.
that and anyone that compartmentalizes it is really just putting these blinders. They're putting themselves in a box. You got to get out of that. And what's interesting about this is that a lot of these discoveries and a lot of these awakenings, even with my own ability and with Nikki's ability, because she has an intuitive ability too, that came about when we started getting into this. And
Mhm.
she even worked for a major psychic hotline and did very well. And we both did. But it's been coming. It comes around like in December. A lot of it's like in December. It's very interesting. I wonder, and here we are, a few days before Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I mean, this is going to air in whenever February, but this is mind blowing, man. I'll definitely be sharing with you more about what I find, because I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, you had to keep me
Oh my
updated
God,
on
I will.
this.
Of course, I
I'm
will.
hoping
I'll,
I'm hoping
I'll
I
come
made a
back
new
on.
friend today.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'll come back on and we'll talk about it, because wait till my patrons or my subscribers, followers hear about this. This is going to be, I mean, again, to me, it's a big deal. I think to some, what I think is a big deal to other people is not always as
I
big of
know
a deal.
because some people are just looking for the paranormal spirit
That's what I
communication
know, but
angle.
I'm not. I'm going, I want to go deeper,
They,
man.
they,
I want to
they're
go
not looking for, the
the
connection to
answers.
the ultimate source of reality.
That's what I want, right? That's what
It's
I
what I
want to
want too. And
get.
I
That's
mean, like,
right.
and I've followed all these paths. I've done paranormal investigation. I've, you know, doing psychic stuff and remote
Yeah.
viewing and tarot cards and
Yeah.
cult and seances and, CE5. I've done it all.
Yeah. And you had results with some of these things,
Oh, almost all of it get
Almost all,
yield
right.
some type of result.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
You
But
know?
at some point though, I mean, he says it's like, you got to find
Yeah.
what you
They're
feel and then you got to just stick with it and just go with it because he's like all of these roads are going to lead us to the same
mhm,
highway, but you know what I'm saying, it's so that's
right.
why I'm just like I'm just every day I'm a kriya band. I mean, it takes me like almost an hour and a half to do my full kriya.
It's like the supernatural aspects of it are a side effect.
They are.
And he says that in this book
He
too. Like
does.
that things like levitation and biolocation, all that is a side effect. Don't get
Chasing
wrapped up
after the
in don't get
phenomena.
wrapped
I
up in that.
know
He
it's
said,
true, and that's why when he makes those comments, I go, "Oh no, am I like really?" Like I kind of have a moment of like, "Oh, am I?" But no, I don't believe I am. I think that I've just been allowed to do this in a way that I'm going to be able to share it with people to help awaken people to the reality of it. I don't, you know, if I was just looking for the answers, I mean, I people ask me like, well, what should I do to do this? If I wanted to do this kind of like spirit communication or whatever, like what's like your best advice? People ask me that sometimes, or something, and I'll say I wouldn't do any of this until I had a working connection with a higher power.
mm-hmm.
If you're doing it to try to see if there's a higher power, okay, I understand, but you're going to get a lot of different things going on. Anytime that I'm doing my work and I'm getting a little confused on a response or something's kind of, it's not making sense to me, I pause, I stop, and I turn to my higher power. And that's really what I preach to people in a way. I really kind of say, listen, go to God first, or your understanding of a higher power. That doesn't mean you have to follow my God or religious God or any of that crap. We're just talking about, go to the source and ask for the source and say, source, God, Buddha, Allah, Jesus, whatever you want to use a Mahavatar, an enlightened person, you can do that, and it will help you greatly. But that's where you need to be. And if you want to then experiment and you want to explore with some of this stuff, you want to reach a loved one, that's all good. But I
Mm-hmm.
think if you go into the wilderness, you know, without a guide or without some kind of gear in a way like a flashlight and some other prep stuff, I think you're kind of asking for, I'm not saying demonic possession and things like that. I think it's more just that you're going to be too susceptible to be fearful of things. If you're not, I feel very protected. And I think
Mm-hmm.
because I feel very protected, I am protected. I feel like I have that protection. But so I don't know. Anyway, that's what I think. I think that you really need to have a working beginning relationship with the source before you start doing this kind of
Right.
advanced work or anything.
When I started, I don't know if I did or not, honestly. I think the more I learned about all of these things, the more curious I have become,
Which
you
is
know,
cool.
and, you know, like I say, I believe that we're living inside the dream of some type of consciousness, and I don't
But do
care
you,
what you
but
call
do
it.
you, yeah, sorry.
The only question is whether this consciousness is benevolent or not.
Okay. So and again, I'm just curious on your take on it as far, or just not even like, your expanded take, but just, I mean, do you believe there, so you don't know if the higher power that is there, I mean, there's a higher power, you're not it. That's what
Right.
you could say.
Definitely.
You just don't know if it's of the good kind or even gives a crap or if it's even so like, what the deal is. Like you just kind of don't know
Mhm.
what the situation is.
Right. But
And
my
yeah,
guess is though, is that it doesn't know either. And that's why we're here.
Okay. And I would say that there's something to that very much. I think that I think that the higher power source experienced almost everything that it could experience through its own creation in some way, but that it hadn't created. There was one other experience that it hasn't created, and that was like what we talked about, itself having free will, or points of consciousness going out and having to come back to it, having to make its own decisions. I think that that was the last thing that could happen that is of I'm anything can happen at that point. And I think that that made it the real experience
Mm-hmm.
for the higher power, for the source. So I think that's just, I mean, what do we know when we look at how the scale of things, the micro, macro? I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're not even the size of sand when you look,
Right.
like, I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Right.
But if we are, if we're a drop of water and there's this ocean, we are still a part of that vast ocean. So we are still a part of something that is the biggest, while still maybe being the smallest. We still have, you know what I'm saying? I mean, even
Yeah.
Yogananda talks about it. He goes, I mean, you talk about water inside of a jar floating in the ocean. And we don't know that we're floating in the ocean because the jar separates us. But once we're dumped back into the ocean, all of a sudden we're one with that source. Now, do we become lost? Are we nothing then at that point? And people ask that, and it's like,
Well,
well, no, I don't think so. I think that we still have some kind of, I mean, I think that's the final,
yeah. Well,
you
I
know what
know
I'm
there's
saying?
not because I've had a near death experience and I was definitely still very conscious.
Right. So you still
But
had that individuality to some
but
degree.
without all the trappings of this,
Right.
there was no fear.
Right. You felt
And
like it
when you
was more of an
escape,
original state. It was
when
more of a
when you're
comfortable state.
without fear, it's indescribable.
I'm sure it is, you know. I mean, I get little bits and pieces of that at times in meditation. I mean, the peace I get in meditation is just being there. I'm just there, and it's like I'm just existing, and it's this beautiful, peaceful, blissful state. And it's such a wonderful thing. But I mean, so I mean, everyone that I speak to on the other side that comes through the boxes, and I mean, whether they talk about positive things, or it's mostly all positive, but they have their sense of humor, they have their personalities, they have, I mean, they didn't lose their memories of important things in their existence. So I think even the highest level, I think there's different levels of consciousness, and so I think those are different levels of experiencing the light, and it just gets better and better. But I think we can fluctuate between those levels. I think that, just like we can have a
Mm-hmm.
bad day and a good day, I don't think that we get to one spot and we're just locked in now for eternity. It doesn't work that way.
Then it's not an experience
Then
either,
it's not. Then we're
right?
in jail. Yeah.
Because experience is going from here to here to here to here.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
if it was just staying in one place, then there would be
That's a boring. I mean, even
there'd
if,
be
I
no
mean, I just can't
experience,
imagine
and
it.
then there's
Yeah.
also no relativity because there's nothing to relate one situation to another. You have no comparison of things, no
Sure. That's,
measurement.
yep. Right. Right. That's, yep.
So it has to be the way it is.
I think, yeah, that's why I've always believed everything is transient, except, for our higher power, except for source, that's eternal. But the one thing that's constant is change. Change is
Mm-hmm.
constant, and that's why, the Buddhists say, suffering is due to attachment, and because we're going to be disappointed at some point, because nothing lasts forever except our souls and the source, which we are a part of the divine spark. So I mean, and that's why I believe you see these balls of light, because I mean, I think that's what they've said. That's all we are, is light.
Yes.
And you've got these bright balls of light moving in independently and doing all kinds of different things. And that's consciousness. That's different. That's the souls moving around. Yet, as interesting as that is, and when you see those on camera, when I'm connecting, I'll see someone show up wearing a suit and still, um, what's interesting about it is that I've also, I do this meditation where I bring everyone through, like I said, a grounding when you bring down some cosmic light and you kind of ground yourself and you get
Hmm.
yourself ready. And then you go through your third eye, you picture like a little version of you in your head going through a third eye window out a platform that leads to a room in the astral realm. And so you're like this large, like kind of transformer, and there's a person inside you. You come out your forehead and you
Hmm.
walk across this plexiglass platform. You get to this room, and in that room is a great arena. It's a great laboratory, if you want to say, a place to do sessions. And I invite the spirit to come to that room, and so they'll walk in a door, and and I'll put chairs out. I'll put some chairs out. I'll have a table. I'll envision a table. I'll envision a flower that I can give them, as a thought form. These are thought forms, these are actual forms, objects that are vibrating at a higher density, a higher frequency. And so they exist, but just not in this realm. And so what I found, and I was always taught about thought forms from different intuitives over the years and stuff, but I didn't realize until I started really doing that during my sessions. And then I would say, well, I see this. I just put this wooden chair out and it's by the table and it's on this and there's a vase on the table. And they'll say that, the flowers are beautiful. I'm sitting in the chair. So they would confirm that they were interacting with those thought forms. That's huge. That was a big
That's
discovery for
interesting.
me. That was big time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Oh yeah. You could hear them. That's why I'm sitting in the chair. They said, well, so many different things. I love the flower. Um, I see someone wearing something and I'll say, I see you wearing this or something. Is that right? Yes, I'm wearing that. I have that on. They talk about sleeping. They talk about working sometimes. They talk about eating sometimes. They talk about a lot of things that are still very physical in a weird way. So I don't understand. I think that it's like that Westworld move or like Westworld show. It's like kind of like they're in another dimension, but that has some kind of physicality to it. It's not like
That's my
it's
understanding that there is another sort of physical
yes,
dense dimension
I think
that's
so.
right next to ours.
I believe so.
Where,
Yeah.
where food and things like that are still needed,
Yes.
and then after that, there's other dimensions where that it becomes
They
less and less
talk
physical.
they talk about, Yogananda talks about the three bodies, right? You got the physical body, you got the astral body, you got, and then inside. So, okay, the physical body, inside the physical, you got the astral that looks like a body, but it's an energy field, but
Hmm.
it looks like it's got arms and legs and a head. And then inside the astral body is a causal body from the causal realm. And that's really where heaven and the light is from, where the yogis and the enlightened ones are most of the time, correct? And so I don't think we're a bunch of dust balls just kind of bumping into each other and talking to each other. You know what I'm saying? I think that, I do think there is that physical realm, but I heard a couple spirits talk about that there have been spirit that have died, their astral body died, and they went higher. So it's almost like there was another death on the other
Hmm.
side that the astral body goes through, and then they now are rising to a higher level. So kind of like what you said. So I mean, I don't know how to understand that, comprehend that, yet. But um, in addition to seeing these beautiful lights moving around me all the time in my sessions, they are constantly talking about, I'm going to rest. It's too late. I was waiting for you. I'm tired now. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to go eat. I was working, and they have all these things that they are saying that they were doing a lot of, so I don't, sometimes they've talked about having machinery and having the types of equipment they like they have a box on their side
Hmm.
that they're working that's connected to my physical box. I
Makes
mean, that's
sense.
yeah. I mean, right? It's like the cans on the string,
Yeah.
right? In a crude, in a very basic way. And there's some astral cord that connects them somehow. I mean, that's really something.
Yeah, I've had dreams similar to that.
And dreams are such an amazing, easy way for spirit to communicate with us. It's a very simple, a very safe and simple way for the most part for them to communicate with us. So I mean, if you've had dreams like that, I mean, I wouldn't say that's just your subconscious throwing out, repressed shit or something. It's actually something, maybe a download, a message from your guides or something.
Yeah, there's certain dreams that I remember that I know they have meaning.
Right,
I
right.
know it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I have to spend the rest of my life trying to figure out those little clues.
I've had a lot of really cool, amazing meditations. I've had some really powerful things, but there was two that I remember that were interesting, because one was, I was in the middle of the meditation. I was really in a very deep theta state and really, in a good place. But then like I felt like Christ bring me not out of it, but kind of like show up into that headspace. And he's like, come on, I want to show you something. And we flew out, and then we went into the ground, and we went deep within the, like, almost the core of the earth. And I'm like, this is so weird and like very non-Jesus like. I feel like, I don't know, I always judging things. It's all what we do,
Mm-hmm.
we judge
That's what
things.
we
I'm like,
do.
what the
Yeah,
heck is, yeah, what the heck is this? Is this real? Is this real? And and he showed me this, like, that there was like some kind of civilization down within the earth somewhere. And like he was showing me this, and that was a very strange thing, and I never heard anything like that. And then, like, a few weeks later on Gaia, the channel or something,
I
they
got
were
that.
they were talking about that, and I thought that was very strange, right? Like maybe I was just being shown a little bit of something
Mm-hmm.
that's true. I may not have all the answers, and maybe they're not telling me all the answers on that Gaia show, whatever, but that was weird. And then one time he says, come on, I want to take you out. And he took me out to like the edge of the universe. Like, I don't know how it was, like we were there quick, but there was kind of like these like ice crystal mirrors, like these like little pieces, like they were just suspended in space. And you reached to this point, and it was moving, it was expanding, but it was like a wall of these little like ice crystal mirrors. And I'm like, I don't even know the significance of that, but it was like,
Wow.
I don't know, man. It was just really cool.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. But it was just so random and so crazy. And it was in that meditation state that you were
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, no, 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 there's something to this. One
Hmm.
day it will be revealed why.
That's
Just
interesting
like,
because the whole center of the earth thing is one of the other things I've been obsessed with. And I've
really?
done a ton of interviews on one. There's supposedly there is a base in Antarctica
Right. The
that
whole,
has the
right?
hole that goes down. Now, and I
Yes.
have a regular guest who's been there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he was there and he's checked it out. Um, but I also there's a place in the Grand Canyon that I'm from kept coming stuff called the Lost Cave of G.E. Kincaid.
I think I
And
saw
and
Rex
and,
Spears talking about that.
and I always felt that both the cave of Kincaid and that base in Antarctica are somehow both
Connected.
connected. So some kind of ancient civilization that lives inside the earth.
He showed me that there were these lights. I mean, there were these massive, I mean, it was very big in size, but there were lights. There were somehow these like light sources above that would, like, illuminate, and there were things that would grow, and there was all kinds of stuff. So I mean, it was very interesting. Of course, I started seeing this stuff, on Gaia and other things like that. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this was brought to me in meditation in a
Yeah.
very weird way. And I thought that he showed it to me so that he knew that maybe in a few weeks I would see something, and that I would believe more of what he shows me in
Right.
meditation. I think that's why that was important, because I did see something about the edge of space, that they think they know what's at the edge of space or something, and it was kind of similar to what he showed me, or what the
Hmm.
scientist theory were. And I thought that was interesting, and I'm like, oh wow. So 2014, this design comes about, and here we are, 2022, and you're, inadvertently dropping a potentially very serious discovery. But that didn't come almost, 9 years later, 8 years later. So you don't know when you're going to be given the other part of the message. You know what I'm
Patience, I
saying?
guess.
Huh?
I guess it takes patience.
It takes some serious patience, dude. Faith and patience,
Or
right?
lifetimes of patience, possibly.
Right. Yeah, who's to say you're going to get this, whatever the message is going to be delivered within a year or a timely manner that according to you or how you want it to be, you know?
Yeah, as far
Yeah.
as the universe is concerned, probably there's no time anyway.
Right.
We're just experiencing it.
I mean, it's on a linear basis, but the fact is that if you think about it, I mean, what you have an ant that is crawling across the ground. I mean, and you see it take, the walk from your pool to the grass, and that could be a very short walk for you, but for it could be miles and miles and miles, right? And
Yep.
so he's experiencing time different than we're experiencing time, and so that's got to be the same. I mean, they say everything that ever was, now, and will happen, it's all happened at once. And if you're talking about an explosion that's happening over a huge distance, well then sure, it's going to feel like billions and trillions of years for us, maybe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, who
Hmm.
knows?
Wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, we look at the that light in the sky. I mean, we look at these stars. I
I
mean,
know, and
it's
they're already gone,
there,
right?
some of them are gone. I mean, if someone was out that far, you could look back at Earth and see dinosaurs.
Yeah,
I mean, that's crazy, man. That's
it is
freaking nuts,
crazy.
dude.
I love that stuff.
I love it too. I love it too because that's what I think that's where I differ in what I do. That I think everyone's interested, but I'm willing to talk about all these things, with anyone about it, because it's not, I mean, just about paranormal. I mean, that was the first few years of what I did, but now it's, ITC, man, instrumental trans communication. It's intuitive, it's mediumship, it's, I mean, I've worked on telekinesis and PK, man. I've moved things with my mind, man. I've got
Hmm.
it documented. I write about it in the book. I've done astral projection. I did an experiment where I said to three people on three different nights, I said, okay, um, I'm going to visit you in spirit tonight. And I said, what I want you to do is when you go to bed, I want you to, lay in your bed, and I want you to ask your guides and your angels to assist with this experiment, and that you're going to give me permission to come visit you, right? And then I want you to text me when you're getting ready to go to sleep, like right when you're ready to pass out, okay? And so excuse me, the first person was this woman that I knew, client, and she always liked the intuitive stuff, so she was willing to be one of my guinea pigs in a sense. And
Hmm.
so she texted me, I'm going to bed. And so I went and sat in my chaise lounge, and I got in my meditative state, and I envisioned and did my meditation, and I left my body willingly, and I go, and I'm like, it's like when you're on Google Maps and you're just like you're going to the next spot, to the
Uh-huh.
next spot, to the next spot, and just zooms over there. And I get to her front yard, I go in her front door, and she had a dog, and the dog, I felt like, noticed me. And I go into the bedroom, and I see her right leg, and there's a tattoo on her ankle, and I squeeze her right ankle, like with my hand, and then I,
Hmm.
I and then I go back home. And the assignment was that when they wake up in the morning, that's when they'll know, right when they wake up, and that right after that they're going to forget. So you got to really, like, the minute you wake up, you're going to know right where it was that if it either it worked or it didn't. That's really how it goes. And so she sent me the next morning. She goes, my right ankle. So that intrigued me. Then I had to do it again. I did it again. The guy was bald, friend of mine, and I go, and he texts me, and I go to his house, and I start patting him on his bald head. Next day he says my head. The third guy was my one really good friend, but this I went a little further because this guy I knew very well. So when I went into his house, I saw his arm hanging off his bed, and I grabbed his wrist, and I did one of those, on his wrist, man. I really did that. And next day he goes, my right wrist. And he goes, look, look. He goes, it's all red. It's all red right
Oh,
here.
wow.
So when you see spirit, or when you see someone go into these abandoned buildings, they're like, I just got scratched. I got these red marks all over my neck,
Hmm.
or whatever. Yeah, that's absolutely possible because we can affect this, spirit can affect this realm. It takes energy, it takes focus, it takes, but so that's what showed me. I was like, holy cow, man, that's real deal, man. I could travel and people can feel it.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's awesome. So I really hate to have to wrap this up,
No, I get it,
but
man.
I have to go to work tomorrow, unfortunately.
I hear you,
So
bro.
what do you say about part two?
Oh, absolutely. Let me do a little bit more of the research for what we just discovered, what I just discovered here. I'd like to bring some of what I'm finding, man. But I'm down. Maybe next month I have um, well, if this is airing in February, I have a live event, or end of January, February, whenever this is. But yeah, I
Mhm.
have a live event in February, 10th through the 12th in Savannah, Georgia. So I'll be doing that, and then but yeah, man, I mean, I'm down. You just got to let Michelle know or whatever, and
Yeah.
I'll come back
Or
on,
just tell
man.
Michelle, and Michelle will just give you the link, and you just drop yourself at any time.
How? What do you mean?
Like I have a calendar, and she'll send you a
Oh,
link to my
okay.
calendar,
Oh,
and then you can
okay.
just book yourself in whenever you want.
Oh, okay.
Because some of her guests, like sort of guests that she sends me, are regulars on my show. So
Oh, they are. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to come back on, man. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm just really grateful for you being inspired enough to share, what you felt, man, because I gotta I don't know how to react. I mean, I just don't know what to say, man. I don't know what when you showed me that picture. I mean, we need to turn that moment into a TikTok or something, or so show that
yeah,
as a
that's
clip because
crazy.
that's a really powerful moment, man. It's like two connections, man, going bam, making a solid connection. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was
I can't wait
awesome.
to I can't wait to look up this whole thing.
So before we wrap it up, where's the best place for my listeners to find you?
Yeah, hopeparanormal.com. Hopeparanormal.com. You can get my app, events, my book. I have got classes I'll be teaching again soon, virtually. Group sessions. I offer group sessions for people. They want to be a part of my group sessions. I'm asking for their loved ones once a month, or if they want to book private readings or box sessions. So hopeparanormal.com.
Hmm. All right. So there'll be a link to that in the notes of this episode so my listeners can find you.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Thank you, man. That's
All right.
perfect.
Well, it was a pleasure having you. We'll be definitely doing this again. And
Absolutely.
just hang on for a moment while I play the binaural outro by the
That's
guy
awesome.
who has been to the immortality
Immortality
machine.
machine, man. That's awesome, dude. I can't believe it.